Okay, got audio? Got audio. Okay, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I look at to decide what possible conditions are going to really be like. A lot of what you're seeing, all of what you're seeing is my opinion. You need to look at nhc.com, listen to them guys, and your local weather authorities and the Channel 4. I'm going to look at what is our wind going to be, our average wind most of the time, what are the gusts could be. I'm going to look at what the rain could be at average times, what the heavy rain would be, what total rain will be. I'm going to look at, also new today, I'm going to start showing flood maps. If you live on a sailboat or you live near creeks and rivers, mostly coastal areas, we'll be looking at the information where you can look at this stuff. But these conditions, what conditions can we expect, is all my opinion. I'll explain it to you. Oh, there goes, no, come on, I'll get back to you there, Mr. I live on a sailboat. He's talking about software, writing C++ code question. My opinion, what do I look at to decide what the real conditions are going to be like, what it's really going to be like? Okay, the TV tells you a lot. I just want more information. So where do we go first? We go NHC, National Hurricane Center. Click on Ian. You're looking at the full screen. Ian. First thing is warnings in the cone. Okay, so we got hurricane, major hurricane, and storm. There are mile an hours associated with all these dots, and there might be mile an hours listed in between them too. So let's look right here. 2 a.m. Thursday. We're going to say that is 2 a.m. Thursday. Today's Monday, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 72 hours. Landfall in 96 hours. And then we'll look at the last one too. Where do you see these numbers? It is here in discussion. Discussion down at the bottom. They list all these dots on the cone map are listed here. So 72 hours while it's still out in the ocean, 115 miles an hour. At landfall, 90 miles an hour, and up in Georgia, inland, 40 miles an hour. And you can see they got this thing at 140 miles an hour in 48 hours. 140 miles an hour. Let's go back to the map. 140 miles an hour in 48 hours. So that would be, yeah, that's okay. So they got it slowing down as it crosses Cuba. Then slowing down as it crosses Cuba, pretty much. No, I'm sorry. Still, I was wrong. I thought that was wrong, and it was. We're looking really here. 48 hours is here, and this is the 8 a.m. So, but some of these things change every 3 hours. Some change every 6 hours at this point. 140 miles an hour, 130 miles an hour, 115 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour. Now they're showing this thing slowing down. They've been showing it slowing down. Yesterday I couldn't figure out why they were showing it slowing down, because if it would have been farther out I could see it, because there was definite shear, 40 or 50 knot shear, and it was dead into each other shear, where the high level is going one way, 40 or 50 knot difference, 50 or 60 mile an hour difference tends to lay the storm over. And you know, as a storm, if you've ever played with the whirlpool in a sink, you know how you can move it around, and if you kick it over, it loses its strength, right? And another thing is there was a lot of dry air going to be coming out of here, and it would suck that dry air up. I could see it. But I did see on Channel 4 this morning, they said there is shear in here that they expect in a couple of days, and starting tomorrow, and to slow this thing down. So we got to hope that shear does hold true. Okay. Let's look what else we can look at. Wind history, wind speed probabilities. We look at wind speed probabilities in 120 hours. Probability of tropical, this is for the whole 5 days, which takes it past us, the whole 5 days, so this map is good right now. And we see that we are in the orangish thing, which is about 65%, 60, 70%. There's some kind of happy. Okay, yeah, I'm back. I had to go check and see what the three-legged $4,000 stray cat is up to, making a bunch of wreaking havoc, making noise and all. So 45-mile-an-hour winds, we got a 65% chance, 60-70% chance of 45-mile-an-hour winds here. Let's keep that in mind because we're going to look at other things and add this all up. Hurricane speed probability. Hurricane speed probability is 10 to 20%. 50 knot, which is going to be more, 50 knot probability, we're right on the line. 30%. 30% for 50 knot, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Okay, we'll keep that in mind. Wind history, arrival time. Arrival time of winds is good to look at. So this is tropical 45-mile-an-hour winds. We can see that Wednesday 8 a.m., Wednesday 8 p.m. So pretty much in the middle of the daytime Wednesday is the earliest reasonable arrive, and this is talking about gusts. It's not, we're not talking about on this one, this is the first gusts that might be 45 miles an hour. 2 p.m. Wednesday currently is what we're thinking. 2 p.m. Wednesday is when the winds might, but it's still going to be pretty calm Wednesday actually. And before you leave here, click on this most likely and you will see that Thursday 8 a.m. is most likely. Thursday 8 a.m. is most likely. So we have here showing about Wednesday 2 p.m. as earliest arrival of tropical force gusts. And when you click most likely, first gusts are listed about Thursday at 8 a.m. Thursday morning is when the wind is really going to start picking up. Click on this most likely. Warnings, interactive, static images, key messages, you could read that. Storm surge entered. U.S. rainfall potential. Let's look at this right quick. U.S. rainfall valid through 8 a.m. Thursday. So this doesn't cover all of it. This doesn't cover all of it. But they've got us in the 3-inch. 3-inch on the Jacksonville dot by 8 a.m. Eastern time Thursday. And so we're not out of, we're going to get more rain after that. 3 inches. And we have some better information to look at on that. Let's look at this one. This one here is a new one, storm surge. It's been around a couple of years. I think that it's supposed to be still labeled experimental. Storm surge inundation. Click on that. It'll say, probably says this is still experimental. Don't believe it. I don't know. And you can see you have a map that you can zoom into by rolling. Homosassa Springs. Now, so this gray area is marsh and stuff anyway, and this is the dry land. Where's the road through there? I guess this is the road is right there, the main highway. Okay, and you can see if we roll up on the whole thing, 3 foot, over 3 foot is yellow, and over 1 foot is blue. Let's go down. Look at Tampa. And that's zoomed in all the way. So you can look at this. This is an interesting one. Let's hit back. That is storm surge inundation. While we're talking about that, let's pop a new tab. Go home. And let's type in CERA models. Cera models. CERA models. It's not something in India. It's not COVID emergency reserve rental, whatever. It is coastal emergency risk assessment. CERA models. You can click on this, and this will populate soon, hopefully. Keep in mind, everybody and their brother and their brother's cousin and next door neighbor is trying to look at this stuff right now. Can we get data? Let's get some data here. Go ahead and play, roll the, there you go. I was going to roll the Jeopardy music while we're waiting for an answer, waiting for them to write the things down. CERA, you can roll in and take a look. And look where we're just looking at Crystal Springs. Most of this is marsh, but you can see the highway. So all this is going to be underwater, all the way up to the highway right there. Look at that. Crystal River. Look over to the right while I zoom out. You see the model. I mean the maximum water height. And this is NAVD88. It was NGD, whatever, VD, whatever. This is the vertical datum for those of you guys that were the engineering people. NAVD88. This is the new vertical datum elevations. So they're not happy. So you know what's going on. What's going on here is, of course, that you might even see below sea level by a few inches or even a foot out in here in some of these areas. Because what happens is that, of course, this hurricane is pulling all this water and washing it up into this elbow, you know, piling that water that used to be all out here up into here. Let's go to Jacksonville. You can see that St. Augustine is this color, which is just getting, okay, we're calling that blue. So St. Augustine is getting close to 3 foot is down this way, 3 foot here, 4 foot is really getting to be totally green like, and then 6 foot is the orange. So we're looking at 3 foot, 4 foot. Jacksonville at the river is getting close to the 5 foot. 5 foot of storm surge inundation. Flood guidance. 5 foot at the St. Johns River. Now, if we look here at this thing, storm surge inundation thing again, and click OK, you'll see that it's not. They are supposed to, if I recall correctly, issue these maps 48 hours ahead of time. It may be that they will issue the maps on Jacksonville. I think that they probably will here on NHC. I think that the storm surge inundation, they will probably issue those. Let's click the home button. Let's go to Spaghetti Models, just to briefly look there. Spaghetti Models, Mike's weather page down in Tampa. Mike, looks like you're probably going to dodge a epic historical bullet down there. Probably it's going to be flooding, and it's going to be bad anyway. And let's click on this one just to take a brief look here. Okay, there you can see that they are, the NHC track is right down the middle of all these guys. You got outliers equally spaced. All this stuff is coming together, and at this point, at this point, all of our effects that we're going to have here are going to be pretty, not a lot of change. Left to right, not a lot of change. I mean, if it goes out here, there'll be some change, but you know, it doesn't really matter exactly where it comes in for us. Now, if it was to swoop wider, or maybe not run into shear, if it was to come in here at this angle, if it was to come in the shortest land path, which is from Cedar Key across us, shortest land path, if it was to hit here at 130 miles an hour, that'll be a different story for us. But we'll skip off of that. Hit back from Mike's weather page, and we're going to go tropical. tidbits. Tropical tidbits is where we see the models. We can just click straight to, well, let's go ahead and click the main page. You can listen to Dr. Well, his Twitter isn't loading. There's Dr. Levi Cohen, Doctor of Hurricaneology. Now, when you listen to me talk, remember, I quit school in the 3rd grade. The NHC has whole stacks and piles of doctors of hurricaneology. They got masters of hurricaneology and bachelors of hurricaneology. But kudos and thank you, Dr. Levi Cohen, for this personal website. And you got to believe he's got some bandwidth going through this thing this week. You got satellite imagery, which is cool. You could look at that. Look through all these things if you feel like it. Let's go to forecast models. We got GFS. The ones we look at are here is GFS. Right now we're just going to look at GFS, this, and maybe Navy. This is Euro, well, FUI. You know GFS is here. Okay, and you look at these, and once you're in these models, you can look, you start on this one, but another interesting one is total accumulated, and then we're going to look at lower dynamics too in just a minute and decide what our wind is going to be. From 2 of them on lower dynamics, we're going to just, and it's my opinion only, if that cat tears up something over there, what are you messing with? This is the first one that we're on there. Okay, and we'll hit play. You can see that pretty much Euro and GFS have come together now. I'm going to stop that and I can roll back and forth through it. Now if we're looking at the millimeters an hour, which is what this is here, millimeters an hour, we'll zoom in a little. Yeah, if I don't zoom in where you can see it though, better. Well, let's roll this up. Yeah, just a little bit to right there. As I do this, you can see that most of the time we're in the green, which is maybe 1/4 inch an hour. So it's going to be raining a lot at 1/4 inch an hour. A lot. Okay? But you see that even though it doesn't stop right on us, you can see that it's a pretty good chance that some of that yellow and even red is going to come through. So what this means is that the yellow is going to be 1/3 of an inch and the orange is going to be 1/2 inch an hour, which is not all that bad. And then the red is 1 inch an hour. But in reality, we're going to see 2 to 3 inches an hour in some of these bad thunderstorms, but it's going to only last for 10, 15, 20 minutes at the most. Real heavy rain. And then go back down to nothing, up to 1/4 inch an hour. Maybe a little while later, it's going to be 1/2 inch an hour for a little while, then 1/4 inch an hour for a little while. Global, Euro, and you see that it stops us when we switch from one to the other. It goes to the same time. Okay, goes to the same time when we switch from one to other, and this is the same thing. Let's roll back and forth. Same thing. They do kind of give us a little more rain, a little heavier rain. You got some of that 1/2 inch an hour action right there, and so that's exactly what you expect. Now I'm going to go precipitation moisture, and then over here is total. You got 24 hour. I'm going to do total accumulated precipitation through the whole model run, and you see, let's do this one so you can see, see the scale. Yeah, my map, my sets there, but that's okay. Let's look at this. Hey, come on. So Euro has us getting into this orangish area, and past this orangish area, 10 to 12 inches of rain total for the 2.5 or 3 day event. 10 to 12 inches of rain possible for this event. I'm going to go global and GFS. It'll come up at the same time period. GFS has us having less. GFS has us in the 5, 6 inch 3, 4, 5-inch GFS. Now, so there's your rain. Let's go to 27 full, and we're going to be looking at, on GFS, lower dynamics, 10-meter wind. 10-meter wind, the wind 100 foot off the ground. What does this show us? You can see through the whole thing, we're staying the 100 foot rain wind, 100 foot rain, 100 foot over your head. We're seeing that we stay in this 20 or 25 mile an hour range. Okay, so when I look at this, what I think, personal opinion only, what I think this means is that, you know, they're showing the 20, 25 mile an hour wind. What that means to me, from personal experience of looking at these models and watching them go, hurricanes go by, and watching these models, is that half the time it'll be half this. So we'll have, and you've all been through it before, it'll be 0 wind, 5 mile an hour wind. Then a little while it'll be 10, 15 mile an hour wind. And then for a little bit it'll be 20, 25 mile an hour wind. And then it'll kind of slow back down. That's GFS. Let's go Euro. Shows the same thing. We've all seen it before. That's what it's like. It's, you know, it's between 0 mile an hour wind and 30 mile an hour wind, 20 mile an hour. Most of the time it's about 20 mile an hour wind. They're showing us 20 knots. You know, 16, 20 knots, 20 mile an hour wind, 20, 22 mile an hour wind. And that's even a little bit over your head still. You know, this last one, I was supposed to have 75 mile or 80 mile an hour wind a mile over my house. I was walking around outside. It was 5 or 10 or 15 mile an hour wind most of the time. So most of the time, we ain't got much wind. Let's go lower dynamic, 850 millibar height, which is 850 millibar height is about 5,000 feet over your head. Now I used this one for possible gusts. Possible gusts, gusting. You can see that the Euro, zoom in, get the scale and everything. Euro, you see that purple? The purple is going to be hurricane force wind, and what this really means is there'll be sustained winds a mile high where it's purple of hurricane force, and you can see that it gets really close. The 50 and 60 knot wind is definitely here. 65 knot wind, but that's up there. So you can see that just because it doesn't stop on us doesn't mean that it doesn't pass over us. So we probably will have some purple, some hurricane force wind up in the sky over the tops of the trees. Let's go global. We'll slip to GFS. Look at the same thing on GFS. You can see that the GFS doesn't give us the purple, but definitely gives us close. It gives us the 50, some of the 50, and just because it doesn't stop on us doesn't mean it actually passes across here. And so if we look at this, some of our worst wind is right before it is landfall, and then it's less than that after that. Let's go look at Euro again. The worst wind is possible while the storm is strongest, when it is still offshore, not near us. As it's near us, you can see the wind has slowed down to a great extent. All this is just a model. This doesn't mean it's going to be on this particular time, Friday. And you remember 18 Zulu, the time, 18 Zulu, valid at 18 Zulu, subtract 5 hours, 13, that's 1 o'clock Friday. Subtract 5 hours is 1300. So it says 18 Zulu is the time right there, which is in England. If you ain't been following along, it's UTC, Universal, or UCT, something Universal. They changed it. It used to be GMT, and you would say Z to shorten it. GMT was Greenwich Mean Time, but now it's UTC or something in England where time starts. That doesn't necessarily mean that when it's right there that the strongest wind is up in Georgia, but it probably will be. But you can see that the Euro, this is the 5,000. So we're looking at, right now we're deciding possible the gusts. When I see this, let's go to GFS again. And let's get this thing where there's some purple near us. Well, it's possible to have some purple in here anyway. If I see purple over my head, purple is, the beginnings of purple is real hurricane force wind. Okay? This is in knots. So purple 65, that's about hurricane force wind where it starts to purple here. When I see purple over my head, what I think is that some people will see, this is the 5,000 foot, this is the 850 millibar, which they, oh, I don't have you, you can't see what it is, but it's the 850 millibar height. And they call it, some of them call it millibar, some of them call it the HPA, which is something Pascal, I don't know, Pascals, I don't know. When I see the purple over my head, that's 75 miles an hour. What that means to me is that some people may actually see some gusts that are hurricane force. And you see it doesn't really, GFS or Euro, doesn't really hit us with the purple. There's GFS, here's Euro. Euro gets closer because of this right here, but it's possible. So some people might see hurricane force gusts that'll be short term, a minute or so, 30 seconds, and it won't be much. It'll be isolated. I figure half of us will see the worst gusts that be half of what I see on this map. So really, I'm seeing about 60 miles an hour. So half of us probably will see 30, 40, maybe 45 mile an hour gusts, but it won't be all that much. Now, when these thunderstorms come through, if a bad thunderstorm comes through, that's when you're going to see those gusts. You know, and so what my bottom line is, how many minutes 21. The bottom line, and this still of course is all subject to change, the bottom line is I expect it to be 10 to 20 miles an hour most of the time, quarter-inch to half-inch rain an hour. When thunderstorms come through, you might see 2 or 3 inches an hour, but only for about 10 or 15 minutes probably. And during those thunderstorms, you're going to see gusts. You know, a good number of us, we're going to see gusts that are 30, 40 miles an hour. Everybody's probably going to see a few gusts or a few periods of 30 or 40 miles an hour. And that'll go on. This is going to last a while. This ain't just an all-day thing. This is a 2-day thing, the way it's coming in and all. And so, and then some people are going to see some 60, 70 mile an hour gusts, but that won't be a lot. So for me, that's what I figure. 10, 20 miles an hour most of the time. 30, 40 mile an hour gusts. Maybe a couple of different periods where the gusts get to 60 miles an hour. Rain, 5 to 10 inches of rain, maybe a foot. We might get out with only 4 inches of rain, 3, maybe 3.5. Some people, depending, you know, it's just isolated spots, may not get that much rain. Might only be down to about 3 inches of rain some places. And it's going to take a couple of days. And so this is everything that I look at to decide what my conditions might be. So I'm not all that worried about it. It's not going to be tearing up houses unless trees. There's going to be tornadoes. I just don't worry about the tornadoes because really, I've never seen one. Sometimes we have outbreaks off of these storms. It might be 100 or 200. You know, some places might see some outbreaks of tornadoes. But even still, the tornadoes aren't like in out Midwest. They're not F5. The bad, worst tornadoes would be about 130 miles an hour, which is F3. Most of our tornadoes that we would see would be about 100 miles an hour. F1, maybe F2, 100, 110 miles an hour, 115 mile an hour tornadoes. Of course, they don't last very long either. If you hear loud wind, get away from the windows. But not if there's a tree that can fall across your house and cut your house in half. We have had a lot of rain. If you remember, not the last 2 weeks, but prior to that, the month prior to the last 2 weeks, maybe even 5, 6 weeks, we had a lot of rain. The ground is still saturated, which allows trees to fall up, uproot, just rip out of the ground. Trees, I got a tree here that I can't park in the driveway in a hurricane because of it. I got to park around next to the house and on the grass so that in case that tree comes down, it won't chop my truck in half. And I might even, if I hear real bad wind, I would probably back up out of my living room, get to the back of the house to get away from that tree, because it's like this, and it could go the worst part that probably rips off goes out in the road, but this other half could potentially crush my living room and get to the sofa. So if I hear a loud wind, I'd back away from that. And this is all the stuff I look at to decide. It's all my opinion. Let's go look at U.S. Navy. U.S. Navy, and they don't have a lot of stuff. The U.S. Navy does just millimeters an hour rain. They don't do accumulated rain for you. Lower dynamics, 850 is all they have in lower dynamics, which is 5,000 foot high knots. It's a smoother map to look at, but you see they're farther out here. If the Navy model was farther over, you'd see we'd be significantly into the purple, which is 5,000 foot off the ground, hurricane force winds. If the Navy was farther over, I might think that we have a little more chance of higher winds here and there, but that's the whole thing. That's the whole deal. Everything I look at, pretty much, not everything, but at this point, this is what I look at. And increasingly, I will be looking at the wind speed probabilities around stuff like. I'll be increasingly looking at National Hurricane Center. Okay. National Hurricane Center. Now's when I start looking at National Hurricane Center, when we're getting close to 3 days out, more. Okay. And I got about 30 minutes before I got to be on the internet here.